Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad to be joined here in the Daily Press Review with Mr. Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, Minister Commercial and member of the Egyptian Council for Economic Affairs. Good morning, sir, and thank you for joining us, and happy Ramadan.
Good morning and happy Ramadan to you and to all the viewers, 1.6 billion Muslims around the world. Happy Ramadan to them all.
Right, and we start off from Al-Ahram and we read its main banner facing attempts to manipulate the goods and the citizens. In the meeting of the National Defense Council, El-Sisi stresses the importance of providing the people with the highest degrees of security and safety. The National Defense Council tackled the new budget of the Egyptian Armed Forces. El-Sisi called for providing the highest degree of security in Ramadan and during the exams of the final secondary year or Thanawi Amma. The President gives his directives to face the attempts to manipulate the goods and increase the prices in defiance of the law. Tackling means of uprooting terrorism in Sinai and reviving the Palestinian cause. Egypt supports all the international efforts that aim at achieving comprehensive and just peace in the region. And still with the same issue, and from El-Yom El-Saba, we read its main banner, the plan of the National Defense Council to secure the country and face the hiking prices. El-Sisi chairs a meeting of the council and tackles the security plan in Ramadan, combating terrorism and the Palestinian cause. The President gives his directives regarding the manipulation of prices. Egypt supports all the international efforts that aim at achieving comprehensive and just peace in the region. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi headed a meeting of the National Defense Council on Sunday. The announcement was made by presidential spokesman Ala Yusuf, who said that the meeting tackled the country's security plan during the holy month of Ramadan. Yusuf added that during the meeting, the president stressed the country's security apparatus should be on high alert in order to provide citizens with the highest level of safety and security. He noted that the meeting also tackled measures taken by the government to control the high prices of goods. Efforts exerted to combat terrorism, especially in the Sinai Peninsula, were also tackled during the meeting. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we go to this report and we'll be right back.
Millions of Muslims around the world mark the start of the holy month of Ramadan on Monday, a time marked by intense prayer, dawn to dusk fasting, and nightly feasts. Saudi Arabia's state television announced the new moon of Ramadan was spotted Sunday evening. Local media in Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim country, also said that Muslims there would begin fasting Monday, as will Muslims in Singapore, Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, and Palestine, among others. Traditionally, countries announce if their moon sighting council spots the Ramadan crescent the evening before fasting begins. The faithful spend the month of Ramadan in mosques or evening prayers known as Taraweeh, while free time during the day is often spent reading the Holy Quran and listening to religious lectures. Each day for the month of Ramadan, Muslims abstain from eating and drinking from sunrise to sunset. There are exceptions to fasting for children, the elderly, the sick, women who are pregnant or nursing, and people traveling. Many break their fast as the Prophet Muhammad did, with a sip of water and some dates at sunset, followed by prayer. It is common for Muslims to break their fast with family and friends and charities, organize free meals for the public in public spaces. The fast is intended to bring the faithful closer to God and to remind them of the suffering of those less fortunate. Fasting during Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, along with the Muslim declaration of faith, daily prayer, charity, and performing the Hajj pilgrimage.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And sir, how do you see the government efforts to control prices and, of course, provide citizens with the highest level of safety and security?
This meeting comes at a critical time for the viewers to know that the National Defense Council is the highest National Security Council is the highest security organization in Egypt, and so this means that the President and the Council is taking care or looking seriously to the escalation, unwarranted and uncalled for escalation in prices without any reason. This brings inflationary pressures on the economy and on the incomes of the limited income stratum. So the government is keen to stabilize prices not only by ordering the stabilization, but rather also by increasing supply and creating new channels of distribution to balance the prices so that the merchants do not increase their prices unnecessarily. This brings to my mind experience which we had some years back at Maadi in Cairo. Some ladies together, they boycotted certain products so that they bring the price down to the normal price. I will not decrease the price, but rather when there was unwarranted and unnecessary escalation in prices, the women put their hands together and they boycotted the butchers. At the time it was the butchers or fish markets, and so it was successful. We can repeat that, although we know that the month of Ramadan, although it is month of fasting, still the consumption of food items increases a bit.
Right, and back to Al Ahram front page, acquitting 33 youth from the charge of illegally demonstrating on April 25th. The Qasr Nil court acquitted 33 defendants in the case of setting up an illegal protest in Cairo on April 25th. The defendants were previously sentenced to 2 years in prison in a first-degree court. How do you see the acquittance of 33 of the youth?
It is another blessing and another present from the president to our new generation. Behave well and you'll be well.
Right.
If you misbehave, you know what the result is, the outcome will be. It is detrimental to their own future and to stability in the country, and gives a unnecessary bad image about Egypt overseas, because people do not know what the details. They just think about this, why they were prisoned. They were prisoned because they were criminal, there were crimes. So our new generation should come to the reason that we have to produce work and work and work, as President said a couple of days ago.
Right, and from Al Ahram we read, Al-Jafari says Egypt supports in the face of terrorism. Ibrahim Al-Jafari, the Iraqi foreign minister, says Al-Sisi confirmed to us that Egypt stands with the Iraqi in the face of terrorism. The battle of liberating Fallujah is a strong setback for Daesh and has unified the Iraqis. And Al-Abadi admits that the Shiite Hashid Shabi, or popular mobilization, has committed crimes while liberating Fallujah. And sir, how do you see the situation in Iraq, the current situation over there, and the current crisis?
It was always critical, and thanks now to the international alliance and the Iraqi government, now they are taking strenuous efforts to eliminate Daesh from the northern part of Iraq and also in the western part at Al-Anbar, this area, because they were just about 50 kilometers from Baghdad itself. So the government of Iraq now is coming to consider drastic steps to eliminate Daesh, and they will be expelled somewhere. They will evaporate at some point.
But what do you think is the way out of the current crisis in Iraq?
The Iraqis should come together. We do not want
unified
Shiite and Sunnis and Turkoman, and they should unify their efforts together, because it is their own country. Whatever the percentages are, it is Iraq for the Iraqis. Once they come together and unify their front, there will be no place for Daesh or ISIS or anything like that. It is as simple as that, and they know this. But they have to come to reason that it is not a matter of are struggling for or are competing for better share or bigger share in the cake. The Iraq was devastated by in the invasion, American U.S. invasion of Iraq. We know that.
Right, and from Al Ahram we read some regional news. Jewish settlers break into the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the eve of Ramadan. The settlers break into Al-Aqsa, and the Israeli occupation forces arrest 17 Palestinians in the West Bank. And Abu Mazen shall accept nothing but ending the occupation and establishing a Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital. And again, the same actions being repeated over and over again.
It is a pity that we hear the Israeli Prime Minister say we want negotiation, we want peace, but what is happening on the ground is something else. The settlers should be stopped. Every day they are gaining more land, they are usurping more land, they are taking land bite by bite, and the Palestinians are really helpless in facing this military machine, which is eroding all their hopes in equitable future. Palestinians should come together. I mean with that, those in Gaza and those in Western Bank, it is this division between these two forces, if I can say they are not forces anyhow, is quite detrimental to the Palestinian cause. So first thing is that two Palestinians to unify their front.
Again, the same situation in all countries, like we just said in Iraq. Unification is the most important factor.
It is a basic fact that once you are unified, you are strong. This applies on when we Egypt, when the outer world now, the whole world is taking care of Egypt now, taking it seriously because they see that the masses or the big mass of the people are behind the leadership. So they reckon with Egypt now because the masses are unified in one front. When you see one front, when 90 million people, no one can resist or can tackle 90 million people, one front. The same criteria applies to Palestine and to Iraq and even to Syria, although the situation in Syria is a little bit more complicated than that in Iraq and in Egypt.
The French President François Hollande has been calling for a new initiative to support the Palestinian cause. How do you see this initiative, and do you think it will be effective?
Whether or not it will be effective, it depends upon the reaction and the response by Israeli government. This is very important. But let us try again and again. We have been trying for 40 years now with the Israeli government since June 65, more than 50 years now. But still, the Israeli government should come to the conclusion that to have a permanent peace, continuing peace in the region, they cannot all the time bite more land and at the same time ask for we need negotiation, we want negotiation. Our hands are extended to Palestinians to come to the negotiating table. I hope that the initiative by French President Hollande will bring some positive results as far as
and President Sisi also has been supporting this initiative.
That is a very important factor because Egypt has a role to play and is playing a very important and pivotal role in the Palestinian issue since I say 48. It is almost 70 years now or 68 years now.
We're supporting the Palestinian cause.
Palestinians in every possible way, not only in men and in soldiers, but in ammunition and in food, in water, in Gaza, in opening the gates, in pilgrimage, in many areas.
In war and in peace.
In war and peace, as you rightly mentioned now.
Right, and from Al Ahram front page we read more regional news. The Syrian forces enter the stronghold of Daesh in Raqqa. The Syrian crisis stops the agenda of talks between Putin and Netanyahu on Monday in Moscow. The Syrian advances in Hama, and the United States calls on Russia not to target al-Nusra front. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will visit Moscow on Monday to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin, with the two having held talks in recent months over the conflict in Syria. Netanyahu's two-day trip is the third to Russia since September and also comes as the two nations mark 25 years since the re-establishment of diplomatic relations. The Israeli Premier's office said that the two would discuss implementing the understandings reached during Netanyahu's visit to Moscow in April. Sir, and again, the Syrian crisis, how do you see the situation in Syria, and do you think is there a way out of this current crisis over there?
There is always a way out of any crisis. No crisis is deadlock. It is as simple as that. We know that the Russia is supporting the regime of al-Assad in Damascus, and they have supported it in many ways. Now Netanyahu has been in Moscow for the third time within less than 8 months. This means that Israel wants to ensure its its influence in the area, but the Russians will not play that game, I think, and they will try in every possible way to stabilize situation and to bring together the different factions and exclude, I think, the factions who are coming from overseas or from other countries, like from their neighbors.
Right, and the last item we chose for today comes from Al Ahram, page 6, and we read, France announces alert in Normandy because of the floods. The Riverside Grand Palais Exhibition Hall in Paris reopened on Sunday. This as floodwaters slowly receded from the French capital after the worst floods in 3 decades caused the Seine River to burst its banks. Other regions remained at risk, notably parts of Normandy, as digging out began in villages and towns around the French capital. The Louvre Museum, several Paris train stations and roads remain closed. And now, dear viewers, we go to this report and we'll be right back.
Flood damage, strikes and terror fears are the ingredients of sadness gripping France 5 days before the Euro football tournament. Thick grey clouds hang over Paris. This as the muddy Seine slowly receded on Sunday from a 3-decade high that saw it burst its banks in places and forced the Louvre and Orsay museums to close to move works out of basement stores. However, while crowds thronged to photograph the river, Paris's star attraction this weekend, residents in nearby towns picked through devastated homes, with officials estimating damages of between 600 million euros, 681 million US dollars, and 2 billion euros. Several towns remained on alert after the floods left 4 people dead in the Paris region this week and over 11,000 homes without electricity. In Paris, several metro stations remained shut as a precaution. France has been ground down by a series of attacks in January and November last year, months of often violent anti-government protests and transport chaos due to strikes.
Welcome back. As we see, France announced alert because of the floods taking place in Paris. How do you see the situation and how do you see the government efforts to deal with the situation?
I was really worried about the Louvre, and this is a part of the civilization for humanity, and let us look to it from this angle. Every capital, everywhere, in all over the world, there are catastrophes. So it is nature.
Catastrophes can take place everywhere and anywhere and anytime.
So we should not dramatize situation as the floods are happening in Sinai or in Kenya or in Alexandria or it has happened in Kuwait, in Bahrain, now in France. So what is important is that
how to deal with the situation.
How to deal with in the situation, how to face the situation, how to deal with it, and how the public helps the government or authorities to batch things together so that we overcome this problem. It's very important how the people react, not criticize, but rather cooperate to end this critical situation. That's very important.
Right, Mr. Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, Minister Commercial, retired member of Egyptian Council for Economic Affairs. Many thanks for joining us, sir, and happy Ramadan to you.
Thank you, and happy Ramadan to you and to the viewers.
And dear ladies and gentlemen, we now go for this short break and we'll be right back to resume the rest of the segments of the breakfast show.